With historic talks being held this Friday between the leaders of the two Koreas, what are the significances of these talks and how have they come about? And this Thursday has been designated World Intellectual Property Day, giving us a timely reminder that China jumped to second place for international patent applications in 2017. What's behind this meteoric rise in Chinese innovation? Welcome to The Point. I'm Liu Xin. A new dynamic in Northeastern Asian politics is in the making. Historic talks between the two Koreas' leaders are scheduled to take place on Friday at the Peace House in the border village of Panmunjom. The summit is being hailed as a crucial step in the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. The gathering, however, is not an easy one, given the escalation of tensions last year after Pyongyang's series of nuclear and missile tests and Washington's war rhetoric. So what has led us here, and what does China think about the neighboring peace talks? Joining me in the studio are Chen Xiaohe, Associate Professor at the School of International Studies in Renmin University of China, and Zhao Tong, a Research Fellow with the Carnegie-Tsinghua Center for Global Policy. Gentlemen, welcome to the show. Now, the landmark dialogue between Kim Jong-un, leader of the Democratic People's Republic of Korea, and Moon Jae-in, the president of the Republic of Korea, is said to improve ties and ease tensions. How significant are these talks, Professor Chen?
Yeah, this would be a significant summit in a number of ways. Number one, you see the tensions on Korean Peninsula was very high, so the two leaders need to work hard to reduce the tensions. Number two, North Korea's nuclear issues has risen to be prominent issues, and we're going to wait and see whether or not North Korea's leader made it clear that it will give up the nuclear weapons. Number three, you see after this summit, United States and North Korea's leaders will meet, and whether or not this summit will pave the way for the next summit between the leaders between North Korea and the United States.
Zhao Tong, how do you look at the significance of these talks from the perspective of relations between the two sides? I mean, how rare has it been for leaders of the two countries to meet in such a setting?
Well, we have only seen two previous inter-Korean summits so far, first taking place in 2000 and second in 2007. So this would be the second one after more than 10 years gap. And it would be the first time in history that a sitting North Korean leader would be visiting South Korean territory. And it's also rare that first time over the last decade or so that both leaders in North and South Korea really wanted to engage with each other and to improve inter-Korean relations. So I think there is a big opportunity that they can make real and historical progress in terms of achieving setting up the foundation for achieving the goal of denuclearization in the future, and also greatly improve political relations, and maybe also making progress towards inter-Korean reunification.
So what has led to this dramatic development? I mean, we have seen, it's almost like overnight, right? Things have changed so dramatically that it's a little bit difficult to follow up. But what has led to such positive development, at least on the surface, Professor Chen?
Since at the beginning of this new year, and the top leaders of North Korea made a very important speech in which he expressed his willingness to send a team to attend Olympic Games in South Korea. And also in his message, he also said willing to discuss nuclear issues. And more importantly, North Korea's leaders paid visit to China and talked with Xi Jinping, and they discussed the important nuclear issues. And so ever since it's changes and moving to a very good directions, that the peace talks may take place, denuclearizations may take place, and how to settle this important issue. So the top leaders need to get together and seek solution for top-down fashion.
Right, but what are behind this approach? I mean, in the mind of the DPRK leader, for instance, is it because that he sees that what he needed to do with nuclear weapons program is already there, so he can, go and bargain with the other sides, or he really sees a golden opportunity to really bring his country to a different path?
I think we really need to give credit to the South Korean President Moon Jae-in. Right after he came into power, he extended olive branch to the north for engagement. He conducted this historical speech in Berlin, saying he wants to start a new chapter in inter-Korean relationship. But North Korea at that time wouldn't be able to respond positively because North Korea was still in the process of rapidly achieving a basic nuclear deterrent capability. But North Korea was able to respond very actively after the end of 2017, after North Korea has achieved a strategic nuclear deterrent. So we saw North Korea reacting very strongly and very positively, and I think that presents a real opportunity for a real breakthrough.
Mm-hmm. Now, what has been the role of major countries such as the United States and China or Russia at the same time on the development? What has really shaped things till this point, Professor Chen?
Yes, and the major powers like China, the United States, and the Russians, Japan, South Koreans all work together to make such happen. You see, on the United States part, it has pursued so-called maximum pressures on North Korea, and Security Council has passed 11 resolutions against the DPRK's North Korea. And China, on the other side, persuade the stakeholders to go talk, to seek solution through dialogue and consultations. And South Koreans leaders also made advances to North Korea in an attempt to improve relationship between the two perennial enemies. But all the things work together and make things happen.
So you think it's a combination of all the factors. Zhao Tong, your view on this?
I think North Korea has been really in the driver's seat over the last 2 years. The important turning point is really the end of 2017. North Korea, after achieving a basic deterrent, now is moving to the second stage. And the North Korean goal right now is to keep its existing nuclear capabilities and on that basis to develop a normal and stable relationship with all other major powers.
So I see a little bit of a contradiction here. So if the DPRK is going to keep its deterrent capability as a protection of itself, but it's also talking about denuclearization, how can these two things go hand in hand, Professor Chen?
So the North Korea's leaders made it clear it is time to make a change. And in the past third plenary meeting of the 7th Party Congress, North Korea's leader made it very clear the Pyongyang line has accomplished the historic missions. So it is time to adopt a new strategic line to single-mindedly focus on economic development. And also,
but does that mean that they're going to keep their nuclear program or freeze it? Because denuclearization does not mean freezing it, right? It means to get rid of your nuclear program, weapons program. Yeah,
freezing is the first step to pursue the denuclearizations. And if the freezing its nuclear and missile test could be reciprocated by South Korea and the United States, and I think that they can move to the second stage to pursue the ultimate denuclearizations of Korean Peninsula.
So you think the DPRK is really sincere about getting rid of their nuclear weapons program? Because for them, that is like the golden chip that brought them where they are, Zhao Tong.
I think North Koreans see their nuclear weapons as so crucial to their national survival, they wouldn't give them up. So as you said, it's very difficult to connect the two, to reconcile the two goals, keeping their nuclear weapons and also developing a normal relationship with other countries. But the fact is, North Korea beat us. North Korea beat international community and in succeeding developing its nuclear capability before we could prevent it from happening. And as a result, North Korea gets to dictate some of the future options. Right now, even though we want to force North Korea to make more fundamental concessions on nuclear weapons, we don't really have good leverage, especially for the United States. Even if the U.S.-North Korea summit meeting failed, the U.S. wouldn't have no other leverages. If it wants to resort to war, now China and North Korea relationship has really improved. China would be strongly opposed to that. Russia would be strongly opposed to that. South Korea, because of its own security interests, would be strongly opposed to that. I don't see how the U.S. can resort to the military option. And also, without Chinese-Russian cooperation, and if North Korea is smart enough to refrain from conducting additional nuclear and ICBM tests, there's no way there's going to be another UN Security Council resolution imposing additional sanctions on North Korea. So the maximum pressure campaign has reached its highest level. And I think, based on my understanding of North Korean economic status, North Korea can live under existing sanctions regime without facing an imminent crisis in the future. That means North Korea has already secured a soft landing.
Let me again ask you about the exact wording that Kim Jong-un used when they talk about the future of his nuclear weapons program. He used the word denuclearization, right? He didn't say freezing its nuclear program, but denuclearization really means, you know, getting rid of your nuclear weapons program. So he's not going to eat his words in the future.
You see, in the public, we haven't heard a single word of denuclearization.
What is his wording? What exactly did he...
North Korea's top leader, Kim Jong-un.
So what exactly did he say?
And he just mentioned the nuclear issues on Korean Peninsula could be settled. And North Korea could give up the nuclear weapons and some circumstances. For examples, the international community, including the United States, could offer a secure regime safety, and remove military threat from North Korea. And also, if international community could consider to offer economic compositions as well as the partial lift of the sanctions, I think North Korea could move forward to the denuclearization directions. But the denuclearizations could only be achieved under circumstances.
Yeah, Zhao Tong, your opinion?
I think to the international community, North Korea has been saying all the right words, right? Denuclearization. North Korea's Kim Jong-un was reportedly committed to denuclearization. But if we read North Korean internal media, there is no mention of denuclearization at all. That's a sign that North Korea is not really thinking about giving up its nuclear weapons in the near-term future. I think North Korea leader is basically committed to an ultimate goal of denuclearization, and hoping that making that commitment to the long-term vision of denuclearization and also taking near-term steps of freezing its capability and maybe limiting the scale and scope of the nuclear weapons, that might make United States accept the nuclear reality.
So what, I have about 1 minute here, a quick answer from each of you. What exactly is in the mind of President Kim Jong-un as he goes into the meeting with Moon Jae-in? Does he want to have the chance to develop its economy, or does he want to buy more time?
I think the North Korea's government and the parties and himself made it very clear it is time to concentrate 100% on economic constructions, and I think it could join the talk and try to give some things and get some stuff from
Zhao Tong, yeah,
I agree. I think there is a silver lining in North Korea's nuclear weapons, which is it makes North Korean leader more capable to introduce more radical economic development and reform measures. I think North Korea is now fully prepared to pivot to economic development, and that's a strategic opportunity the international community should seize upon and make the most out of it.
Many thanks to my two guests, Chen Xiaohe, Associate Professor at the School of International Studies at Renmin University, and Zhao Tong, a Research Fellow at the Carnegie-Tsinghua Center for Global Policy. And you have been watching The Point with me, Liu Xin. We'll take a short break and we'll be back right after this. Thursday, April the 26th, is World Intellectual Property Day, and the day is a timely reminder that copyright protection needs to be strengthened, and is a day for the global creative community to celebrate their innovation. According to the latest UN report on innovation, China jumped from 3rd place to 2nd place for international patent applications filings through the World Intellectual Property Organization in 2017, surpassing Japan and closing in on the United States, which has been the long-time leader. On March the 21st, the World Intellectual Property Organization, or WIPO, released its annual statistics on the use of its intellectual property services, patent, trademark and industrial designs. Figures show US-based applicants filed nearly 56,600 patent applications, followed by applicants from China with almost 49,000, and then by Japan with just over 48,000. Germany and the Republic of Korea ranked 4th and 5th respectively. Among the top 15 countries, China is the only one to have recorded double-digit annual growth of over 13%. In fact, China has now posted growth higher than 10% every year since 2003. And Chinese companies Huawei and ZTE were the top filers of international patent applications last year, followed by Intel, Mitsubishi and Qualcomm. This is indeed very positive news for Asian, especially Chinese applicants. So what do these numbers tell us about innovation in today's world, and how is the current trend projected to evolve in the near future, and what has made it possible for Chinese applicants to go so far for so long? I was pleased to be joined from the UN office in Geneva by Dr. Francis Gurry, Director General of WIPO, the UN agency that is at the heart of technology and innovation. The agency assists its 191 member states in developing a balanced international IP legal framework. He introduced to us China's performance in terms of intellectual patent filings and international trademark filings in 2017.
It's extraordinary. You've given the figures and they speak for themselves, but let us recall now that China has moved into second place, as you have said, for patent filings, and patent filings really concern the latest technology. So China is now the second largest producer, and is using this as an indicator of new technology in the world, which is an extraordinary performance. You mentioned these growth figures. Let's recall also that since 2003, China has recorded double-digit, two-figure growth in international patent applications every year. So it's really an exceptional performance in the area of trademarks. And so trademarks, here we're talking about brands. And we know that already a number of Chinese brands have become global brands. You've mentioned two of them in the patent field, in the technology field. There are others that we all know, Chinese global brands, and this is an extraordinary evolution. In terms of international trademark filings then, which are the legal protection for brands, we see that China has moved into third position behind the United States and Germany in terms of numbers of international trademark applications. The growth last year was 36% from China, so this is extraordinary, and we're seeing the take-up now as Chinese enterprises look to export markets as well as the domestic markets. Then international brands, global brands, become more and more important. So all in all, an extraordinary performance.
Now, you have spoken about the changing geography of innovation from west to east. Is that still the case? What do you mean by this, and what do the figures look like?
Yeah. So, yes, this is still very much the case, and this is a persistent trend that we've seen in the course of the last 10 years in particular, but 20 years overall, I would say. So if you take international patent applications, which I said are an indicator of the latest and the best technology coming out of the world, Asia is now the origin of 49% of them. And if you go back merely 10 years to 2007, you see that Asia then was the origin of 27%. Now, 49% coming from Asia, 25% from Europe, 25% from the United States of America. This is an extraordinary evolution. Of course, it's in line with demographic trends. The center of population is increasingly Asia. It is Asia. The center of economic production is increasingly Asia. And very importantly now, the center of technology production is increasingly Asia. And that speaks of the future. This is an eye to the future, because this new technology coming on are the products of tomorrow. And we see that the science and technology base and capacity and performance in Asia is rising all the time, led by China, but also very strong players with Japan, the Republic of Korea, and to a lesser degree, India and Southeast Asia. But overall, this is the center of gravity now for technology production in the future.
Well, patent applications is one thing, IP protection is another. How would you qualify China's IP protection and enforcement efforts compared with China's efforts in the past?
Well, look, again, I have only praise, because China enacted its patent law in 1984, so we're only 34 years away from that, and it now has the largest patent office in the world. It's the second largest filer of international patent applications. That's an extraordinary evolution over a relatively short period of time. And you can repeat that exercise when you look at branding, which is, as I said, reputation and image in global markets. And it's also the case for designs, which is the external appearance of products. So it's an extraordinary performance to build this infrastructure, and I would say also make two other points. In terms of enforcement, I've visited the Supreme People's Court. I've visited the Specialized IP Court in Shanghai, in Beijing. These are world-class facilities. You know, this is world-leading facilities. Now, China is a very big country, as I don't need to tell you. It's a very diverse country. And building the infrastructure of a country as large as China, geographically as large, with 1.4 billion, I think, people, is quite a task, and some time is needed, but there are some absolutely splendid and leading facilities that we see in it. And I'd say the other thing, if I may, that is very impressive about intellectual property in China is that there is a strategic vision and leadership from the top in China. And that concerns science, technology, first of all, building scientific and technological capacity, innovation, which is new products and new services or new technology entering into the economy, and intellectual property whose role then is to protect the competitive advantage that is given by that innovation. And so that sequencing and that vision of how this fits together is extraordinarily coherent in China, and as I said, led from the top.
You have been the WIPO Director General since 2008. During your 10-year tenure, how would you describe China's evolution with respect to IP?
Look, it's going from strength to strength. So now I think, if I may recall, back when I started in 2008, I had the privilege of meeting the then Prime Minister, Mr. Wen Jiabao. The first words he said to me were, intellectual property will be the basis of competition in the future. And I think that vision has been reflected consistently by the Chinese leadership. There is an acute awareness that intellectual property protects the competitive advantage of innovation, that innovation is the source of, one of the principal sources, if not the principal source of economic growth, job creation. Let's remember the enormous task of creating jobs that there is in the Chinese economy, and maintaining a competitive edge in an increasingly globalized and intensely competitive economy. So over the course of the 10 years now that I've been in my current position, we see this vision consolidated. We see it's radiating across the new areas of technology, for example, artificial intelligence, in which there is a major strategic government position, Chinese position, advanced manufacturing, the life sciences. It's radiating, as I said, the clean energy, renewable energy sector, radiating right across the economy. So it's a quite remarkable performance.
And finally, I have about 30 seconds left. There is a WIPO office in China which opened in 2014. You mentioned briefly about it. How would you comment on the progress the office, or the role the office has played over the past 3 years?
We have some wonderful colleagues in our WIPO China office. They have reached out, as I said earlier, and as you know very well, China is a vast country, so we've reached out in Beijing, but beyond Beijing, beyond Shanghai, right across the country, and we've seen extraordinary take-up. My colleagues have been organizing, making presentations at 200 events in the course of the last 2 years. This attracts immediate audience of some 10,000 people, but that audience is expanded. They've done a wonderful job, and we've seen the use of the international patent applications by China grow by 60% in the last 2 years, and of international trademark applications grow by 75% in the last 2 years. So our presence in China is vital to us in reaching out to the Chinese market, and I hope it is of some assistance to the Chinese enterprises and users of our services.
That was my interview with Dr. Francis Gurry, Director General of the WIPO. And here is my point. If the current trend continues, as we have heard, China is projected to overtake the US within 3 years as the largest source of applications filed via the WIPO. We have to be clear-minded, though. A big patent applicant country is not necessarily equal to a strong patent applicant country. In terms of per capita filings, China is still lagging behind the US, Japan, and many others. If you look at the ranking of educational institutions, the top 10 are all located in the US, which is also thought-provoking. But the rapid rise of domestic patent application filings is a trend which is still remarkable, especially given that China has been registering double-digit growth for the past 15 years, despite the relative slowdown of the country's GDP growth. In fact, China's investment in R&D has topped the world, a prime factor in the rise of innovation capacity and why that's projected to continue in the near future. So don't be surprised to find more and more innovative products and ideas coming from China. Nobody has a monopoly on innovation. That is all for this edition of The Point with me, Liu Xin. As always, follow me on Facebook and Twitter using the handle The Point with Alex. Download the application called CGTN to watch the show on your mobile devices, or go to YouTube and look for CGTN The Point. Thanks for watching. You've got The Point.